Last night, I put out a tweet that blew up, and I mean really blew up. And it's funny, too, because I gotta be honest, I didn't expect that at all. I just thought it might be fun to tease my fans about an upcoming Valve announcement after a couple of my contacts just tipped me off that something big was going to be announced by the company in under 24 hours. And you know what, though? Thank you to the community for showing so much support and so much excitement for that tweet that I put out tipping you all off that indeed, yes, Valve was about to announce a bunch of new hardware. You see, when I see that level of engagement from the Moore's Law is Dead community, especially on a subject like Valve, a company I rarely leak information about, that tells me I should focus on it, that there is a huge hunger out there for a new console manufacturer besides Xbox and PlayStation, and that it would be worth my time to focus on it. And so because of that, today I'm going to focus on the Steam machine and break down what it should roughly cost to produce and how it should perform. And by the way, I think a lot of people are getting some of this stuff wrong. And so I do think it's important that I do this since you all seem to be interested in it. And yeah, as for the new controller, the VR frame device, or honestly, AMD this week also confirming Zen 6 and Zen 7 details officially. I'll talk about all those things eventually in an upcoming Broken Silicon, but today I just want to focus on the Steam machine. So let's do that. And first, let's talk about its performance. So first of all, the GPU. Look, this thing is basically an unreleased 7500 XT, a cut down variant of the RX 7600. It's actually almost exactly a 7600M, a laptop variant of a graphics card that will be 3 years old by the time this console launches. So look, compared to the PS5 is 29% more compute units, but you know, this will be clocked about 10% faster than the PS5's GPU, and it will be RDNA 3 instead of RDNA 2, which I find is usually about 7% faster on average compute unit to compute unit. So if you add it all up, the PS5 should be a bit faster on paper, but only 8% faster. However, now to be fair to the PlayStation 5, its console actually has more TMUs. It's probably going to be a tad more optimized to the metal by developers, although Valve's console will be optimized to be very close to the metal, you know, so it's not like comparing it to like the Xbox ROG Ally X that just has a performance penalty compared to other consoles. It will have a smaller performance penalty than usual compared to the PlayStation. But yeah, the PS5 also has a bunch of extra little tweaks on I/O controllers and stuff. And so just overall, I would say that I expect the PS5 to be about 20% faster overall. Well, before you consider FSR 4, which as far as we can tell, RDNA 3 should be getting FSR 4 support early next year. And because of that, I think it might almost be a wash. Like the PS5 might be slightly better, but it will only be slightly. And you might be able to get around PS5 performance out of Valve's new box in a lot of games. All right, that was the GPU. Now let's move on to the RAM. So look, I'm not going to kid you. 24 gigabytes isn't fantastic. But I do think it's probably going to be enough, especially because this thing will be running SteamOS, not Windows, and so it will use RAM a bit more efficiently. And overall, even long term, I think it can probably do 1080p medium settings, especially because I'm sure devs will optimize their games for this a little more specifically, just like they have like special Steam Deck settings for the Steam Deck as well. And so even 4K might work with FSR, which remember, when this comes out, there might be FSR 4 support as well. So maybe you will be able to do like 4K medium 60 with FSR 4 balance or performance mode on. I think that's totally plausible. And so I do think the performance of this will be enough. It'll have enough RAM. The graphics card is enough to get you to what they're claiming. Just don't expect to turn settings beyond medium most of the time. And anything beyond 4K high is going to be unlikely in AAA games long term. All right, so now let's move on to the final component to bring up, the CPU. Overall, I would actually say the Steam machine will only have a slight advantage to the PS5 in the CPU department, and it might not always have one. Oh, what's that? Do you hear it? A bunch of people typing in all caps angrily at me, saying things probably like, but it has Zen 4, the PS5 only has Zen 2. Actually, no, it doesn't. You see, The early rumors that came out from Sadly It's Bradley, who I consider the GOAT of Valve leaks, showed early prototypes of this thing using something that is called Hawk Point 2, or Little Hawk Point. It is a budget variant of an APU that is already a year old now, and the thing is, that has up to a 30-watt TDP, which if you look, the Steam Machine also claims that, by the way, for the CPU, further supporting this, that this is Little Hawk Point, and therefore, because it actually only has 2 Zen 4 cores and then 4 Zen 4C cores. It doesn't have 6 full Zen 4 cores, and it's actually more of like an underclocked Ryzen 5 220 with its integrated graphics probably disabled. So overall, that means that I would expect this box's CPU to be more capable of running lightly threaded titles like single player games like God of War or something a bit better than the PS5. Like if the PS5 can't really get past 80 or 90 frames per second, as long as you turn down the settings to get there, this will probably more easily hit 120 or 144 hertz. But in games with a lot of assets being streamed in and physics being calculated, maybe a game like Battlefield 6, I actually am not so sure the PS5 CPU is any less capable than the Steam Machine, especially when you throw in the extra I/O controllers that the PS5 has, the Steam Machine will not. So overall, what you can say is in some games, the Steam Machine will probably more consistently get to like 120 frames per second, but in others, the PS5 might actually have an advantage, and overall, don't expect this to be any more than a 144 hertz gaming device. And there's probably a reason Valve keeps saying 60 hertz, because that's probably what it's mostly trying to target. All right, then. But that raises a question. Why is Valve using such a weird CPU for this? Why is Valve using such an odd GPU choice? A GPU that will be 3 years old by the time it launches? Well, what I think it all comes down to is that Valve, just like they did with the original Steam Deck's APU, they got a special deal from AMD in a time where AMD was a little desperate to find someone to buy some products from them in bulk. And so when you look at the weird specs of the Steam Machine, what you're actually looking at isn't so much a device that was made by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. It was made by someone who is trying to win a Scrapyard Wars competition and then wants to mass produce that for you all. And now I'm going to break down what the cost of this device will probably be, but first, an ad from a sponsor. This piece of content is brought to you by the Sihu C300 Advanced Ergonomic Office Chair with advanced back support. This chair is, well, incredibly high quality. I have to say that I checked it out and I really felt like it was actually quite a step above a lot of the other chairs that I've reviewed over the entire life of this channel. In addition to that, it was very easy to assemble by my girlfriend, and she will be using it in her office and is looking forward to replacing her old chair with it. And it's not just her that likes it. It's also our cat, by the way, and that's because it can support up to 300 pounds of weight, making it useful for all different types of body sizes. And it's also got 4D adjustable armrests with multiple adjustable headrests for maximum comfort, a flexible backrest with a self-adaptive lumbar support for consistent weight support, and a streamlined sit-back with waterfall-shaped seat for a lighter and ergonomic experience. It also has a smart weight-sensing mechanism for effortless balance and reclining. And yeah, I tried it out too. I also really like it, and it's been endorsed by Tom's Guide, CNET, CNN, Tech Radar, Forbes, and more than 1,000 reviews, so you know you can trust it. But you can also trust it because it has a 30-day free return. Try it for 30 days. If it's not for you, you can return it for free. And then it also has a 3-year warranty, and you can receive it in just 5 to 7 days in the United States. So if you are interested in a new office chair, I do recommend this one, and you should check out the Sihu C300 Advanced Ergonomic Office Chair. And remember, if you do that, you will be supporting the channel just to even click on that link. But of course, purchasing it through that link helps the channel even more. And also make sure you get access to the best pricing available at the moment for it. So support Moore's Law is Dead with the Sihu C300 Ergonomic Office Chair today. Okay, so for those who don't know, a bit of a history lesson here. The APU that was used in the Steam Deck, it was actually originally designed to be used in a Microsoft Surface device. In fact, I believe AMD wanted Microsoft to use that in like late 2020 or early 2021, and well, Microsoft backed out of the deal. That's something I've always heard. That's something I've heard other people suggest, and it's something that's been covered on this channel multiple times in the past. But the point is that once AMD designed this bespoke APU that they thought would be perfect for a premium, like thin and light laptop in 2021, they were worried they were going to have to just throw away this thing they worked on. And then that's when Valve swooped in. Apparently, in conversations with AMD, they learned of this APU, an APU that was no longer going to be exclusive to Microsoft. And they were, at the same time, working on some sort of skunkworks project for a handheld PC gaming device. And they said, that 15-watt APU you got there that has stronger graphics than you would usually get in a 15-watt APU at the time, that's perfect. We would like to have that just slightly tweaked, and we will buy millions of those from you if you will let us. And then the rest is history. Valve is an opportunist when it comes to making these sorts of bespoke devices they don't usually make. And that perfectly explains why the specs of this machine are so odd. You see, they went to AMD, I believe, and said, we want to make something that is a standardized gaming PC for desktop, and we just want the cheapest you can give us that hits a certain level of performance. And AMD, well, they probably looked around and they saw that they had a massive stockpile of 7600Ms that they were never going to sell. This is also something I've covered on the channel extensively, that back when AMD was planning RDNA 3, they thought it would be a galaxy brain move to, yes, they were going to put their high-end chips on 5 nanometer, but they said, we're going to put our lowest end die, the RX 7600, on 6 nanometer and try to match the 4060 in performance. And because it's on a cheaper node, and a cheaper node that has less capacity constraints because it's just less desirable, we're going to be able to pump out 2 of these to every 4060, and that's how we take the laptop dedicated GPU market. And it just didn't work. OEMs wanted the most efficient GPU they could get, even if it's only 20% better or more, maybe a bit better than that in efficiency. That's enough for them to say, hey, the laptop's already going to be $1,500, an extra $100 to get better battery life and a bit better performance in a laptop form factor. We're going to choose that, especially when consumers tend to go for the NVIDIA sticker, especially in laptops. And so, yeah, I've long heard that AMD had tons of Navi 33, that's the die used for the 7600 and 7600M, just lying around that they don't know how to get rid of, and I think they cut Valve a deal. I think they said, you can take some of the worst yields of one of our lowest volume selling Hawkpoint products, maybe we just disable the integrated graphics on that, allow us to dump our remaining Navi 33 stock, and then you can cobble together, like I said earlier, this Scrapyard Wars Frankenstein desktop that you can then mass produce and undercut Xbox and possibly PlayStation as well. But how much will the Steam Machine cost exactly? Well, I estimated it for you. I put together a full BOM table, and it's now on screen. And you can see that I also did it for the Steam Deck LCD 256 gigabyte, just so that I could make sure that my methods were grounded in reality. And I got to around $300, and that is what I've seen other analysts online that's job is to tear these things apart also estimated. So I got to a similar number to other professionals, which tells me the way I'm doing this is probably pretty accurate. And do note that, I've also done this professionally before I switched to YouTube full time. I was an engineering account manager for years. Part of that job was putting together estimates for how much it would cost my company to manufacture a given amount of products. It could be maybe 100 a year, could have been 10,000 a year. And I had to know what each part costs, like how you could estimate that, and even sometimes do competitive analysis with our competitors as well. So I have done this before, actually, professionally, so you can trust that. And, you can also trust that a lot of the stuff on here, you can kind of back up just with what's online. Like you can go online and find out what a power supply costs that's over 200 watts. You can use a silicon calculator to estimate the cost of a given die. And I did all of that. Links will be in the description. But anyways, let's get to the point. As you can see on screen here, I genuinely think that a lot of this stuff is actually pretty cheap. Like I said, little Hawk points, probably like, I don't know, below $40 for the die. If you look at similarly priced graphics cards that are out there, which remember, even the 5500 XT's die isn't that much smaller than the 7600M that will be in the Steam machine, and they're selling those for $130 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. You can find for $170 7600s right now. And remember, AMD will be buying these things in bulk, and they will be able to save a bit on cooling costs as well, because it's going to use like a shared cooler in the device. So they'll be getting it for less than that. I'm pretty comfortable with my numbers, and they point to, look, if they want to have similar margins to what they're getting with their now years old Steam Deck, I think they can charge $599 easily. Easily, they can charge only $599 for this thing. And if they wanted to be really aggressive and twist the knife in the back of Xbox before they launch Magnus, I think they could charge just $449. And look, I know, I've seen other creators out there say that they think this thing might cost $800 or something, but all of those estimates on other channels seems to come from some quote Valve told them, which was it will cost about as much as an entry-level gaming PC. And they seem to think that means $800. But I don't know that we should be so sure that that is what that means. Like, if you look around and Google, you can see that at least in the corporate speak, if you go to a pre-built website, look at what Lenovo or someone thinks of it, most of the time they're saying entry level is $500 or more, usually around $600 or $800, and never more than $1,000. So I think that Valve is actually targeting something that's probably going to be $449 to $600. And just to do another gut check here to make you all see that I'm not crazy to suggest that, look at this. For $420, you can get a laptop with basically the same APU this will get. And yeah, I know it has less RAM, but whatever, remove $80 from $420, because if it was a home console, it wouldn't need to have that screen. It wouldn't need to have the battery that's in the laptop. Those are usually a large part of the cost, by the way. Then add another $25 to get to like 16 gigabytes of RAM and $150 for some ultra weak budget GPU. You get to around $500. Or here's another example. Here's a $600 minis 4-room mini PC that has a similar type of GPU, at least in terms of cost to manufacture, a similar in terms of cost to manufacture, actually maybe more because it's bigger, APU powering it, and that's $600. Then there's my friend who comes on the channel all the time. David does tech stuff. He even threw together a PC you could build yourself for $650 recently, and it has a better graphics card technically. And so, yeah, I think this backs it all up. I stand by it. I think Valve is probably targeting $449 to $600. Well, I'll say this, though. If they stockpiled RAM ahead of time, because I know that that's getting wacky in terms of higher pricing right now. And obviously, this also assumes that tariffs don't get worse for Valve's ability to make this efficiently. But also, we don't know what will happen. For all we know, tariffs could be removed by the Supreme Court in a month or something. So it could go either direction. And it could be a bit more because of whatever's going on in the world in a bad way, or it could be a bit less if tariffs get removed or DDR5 prices return to normal. We don't know yet. And actually, I think that's why Valve hasn't announced the price early either. I think Valve is sitting there and going, like, we don't know what the hell is going to happen. And so let's just tell everybody the specs. We know this will be the most competitively priced product when it comes out, but we don't know the exact price yet, and we'll tell everybody right before we release it. And actually, speaking of hell, I think Xbox might be in it soon if Microsoft doesn't rethink their pricing strategy. You see, while the Steam machine is not going to beat the PS5 in performance, it might get pretty close and even undercut it in price a little bit, while offering games that on average cost less during Steam sales and the ability for you to play online more often without having to pay any fee to do so. So Sony might actually have to respond to this thing if it's a huge hit. And Xbox, oh my God, look, forget the PS5. The Steam machine is going to be at least double the performance of the Xbox Series S, while possibly costing the same or slightly more. It's easy to dunk on Xbox, but it's just part of the video. I have to do this. This will make a complete mockery of the Xbox Series S. And when you look at how small and quiet it's intended to be, don't worry about the PS5. It could bring competition to PlayStation in a way, but I think it is abundantly obvious that the Steam machine is an Xbox Series S killer. And really, That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, PlayStation and Nintendo, they've won the console war against Microsoft. And in fact, Phil Spencer has been admitting this directly for years now. And so I believe that Valve knows that the next thing Microsoft will do with their Xbox brand is try to retreat from console competition into the PC space, and in doing so, bring more competition against SteamOS, right when SteamOS is starting to eat Microsoft's gamer lunch. And so I think that's where the Steam machine comes in. I think Valve is sitting here going, hey, you got this fancy Xbox Magnus coming out soon, but it's not coming out right now, is it? We don't need anything fancy. We don't need to have some super expensive bespoke APU that we design with AMD. We can just, again, play Scrapyard Wars, go to AMD, say, hey, what's the best price performance products you can give us that hits this level? And we'll Frankenstein together something right now that launches a couple years before you're able even to compete with us, and competes at a much lower price, as Microsoft is also telegraphing that their Magnus console, which I've already leaked if you want to see everything about it, including pictures. It looks very cool, but I believe it's going to be very expensive, and Microsoft has basically said that publicly as well. And so I think this could be almost another Steam Deck versus Asus or ROG Xbox Ally X situation again, where yes, Microsoft launches the stronger console eventually, but it will be years after Steam has already been there, hitting a minimum level of performance that most people think is acceptable at a much lower price that might make people shrug if Microsoft charges too much for their next-gen console. So at the end of the day, Microsoft, you've already been pushed out of the console space. Now Steam's looking to make sure you can't get back into the PC gaming space. Make sure you really think long and hard about how much you want to charge for Xbox Magnus, because to me, when I look at the creativity and the Scrapyard Wars console they're throwing together, they're ready to fight you and fight you tooth and nail for this new little PC hybrid console kingdom they have been building. All right, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you hit the like button, that you comment down below. I'm sure you'll have a lot of thoughts about this, and that also you share this video. Please share it. I saw a ton of people supporting when I leaked that this stuff was about to be announced today on Twitter. I hope all of you can share this on Twitter, share this with your friends, so that people can see a lot of details they may have overlooked, like the actual Zen 4C APU this is using. Additionally, consider supporting Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon. If you do, you'll get early ad-free access to Broken Silicon on the proper tier, the ability to ask us questions, and also you'll be able to get access to a catalog of hundreds of bonus pieces of content like Die String. One just came out right now that was an Ask Me and Dan Anything about leaking. Like, where did some leaks come from? Like, what were we wrong about? What do we regret getting wrong? And what does it take to do what we do? And how is it actually done? What are some misconceptions out there? Get access to that for even just the $2 tier right now if you support us on Patreon, and that'll also get you access to the Discord. So please do that if you have another $2 or $3 a month to spare. But otherwise, no matter what, if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching.